Almost a year ago today, I went and saw Disney's movie Wish with a couple of friends. If you're new to this channel, then hi, my name is Kiki. I like to write and draw animatics in my free time, but we're doing something different today because it's been way too long and this damn movie won't leave me alone. Honestly, I could go over so many little things that made this movie especially bad for me, and keep in mind, dear viewer, I've never held a grudge like this over a bad movie. By all accounts, I've watched and put up with way worse. I saw Ruby Gilman in theaters in summer of 2023. I paid money to see it, and I still enjoyed it quite a bit. Heck, if we really want to get into it, I saw Morbius in theaters. Yes, that one. Because I'm a fan of the comic book character and was colorblind to the red flags in this production. But even with all the thoughts I have about that one, any opinions I could give have either already been said or just begin and end at Vic Slaughter should have been the villain instead of Hunger. But if I went over all the things about Wish that made me want to get 90 minutes of my life back, I feel like we'd be here all day. I'd just rehash stuff everyone else has said, and this isn't what the video's about. So let me just go through some quick points so we're all up to speed here. 1. The animation isn't good. They didn't want to fully commit to the stylized 3D with motion blur or any artistic frame rate changes, so now it just looks like Sofia the First, and that's not a compliment. I'm saying it looks like cheap TV animation. And don't try to tell me about how they turned off the motion blur because they thought it would look bad with the watercolor art style. The Lego Movie managed to come up with brick blur to get around that, and the world's richest multimedia conglomerate couldn't think of something similar. 2. The songs are bad. Why would you hire pop songwriters for your musical? They wouldn't know how to write musical theater songs meant to advance the story and characters, just how to write a Billboard top 10. Say what you will about the man himself, but at least Lin-Manuel Miranda knew how to write for musicals. Number 3. Why does every character aside from Asha and the King suck? Like, it feels like you were either making a product or reference first, characters later, or you just forgot about them until the plot needed them to be relevant. 4. The King not sucking isn't saying much. You fumbled his character so bad it makes me want to die. Either flesh out his tragic backstory or go full on unapologetic evil bad guy. You can't have both without some kind of build-up or nuance. 5. Why were all these concept pieces scrapped? This is so good. 6. This is your 100-year anniversary film. Why is it mid? Whew. Okay, I'm done. Now, frequent viewers of mine, all like 20 of you, might think a video essay from me is pretty out of pocket, and it is, but I'm coming from a unique perspective here. I may draw animatics in my free time, but I am also a fourth-year animation major in university studying to write, conceptualize, animate, etc., for films. I am studying in school to make stuff like this. Some of the videos I've posted have been homework. What I'm saying is, I feel like I couldn't just sit aside without doing something creative with this hollow mess of a milestone film. And this beats ranting about it to my friends on Discord, which, thank you guys for putting up with this. You'll never have to hear me talk about this in voice chat again. A couple of notes before we begin. 1. We're bringing back 2 of the scrapped concept pieces. First one being Star as a shape-shifting star boy and love interest for Asha. But we don't need romance in modern Disney.
Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up! Shut up!
I know, there's other things that can be done to fix this movie before immediately jumping to giving Asha a love interest. And I'm doing those things. I only mentioned this at the start because I made a whole video essay about whether or not Asha and Star were even going to be in love and how my findings were inconclusive, to say the least. There's a strong chance the fandom made this one up. But that doesn't mean that the idea shouldn't be used at all. Plus, some people think it's bad to give Asha a romance subplot for various reasons, and most of those reasons I feel could be fixed with just writing Asha better anyway, so that her whole personality and storyline aren't solely about the hot guy in the movie, you know? Which, I'm doing that. I am also acknowledging the fact, however, that some people seem to be very suspicious of the fact that a lot of people in the Wish rewrite space seem to be gravitating towards this, let's face it, conventionally attractive white boy character that wasn't even in the film more than the Afro-Latina main character, which I won't say they're wrong for being suspicious of that, but I don't think they're quite hitting the nail on the head either. There's a history in fandom spaces where people gravitate more towards the male characters in a story rather than the more important female characters. People argue that that's why you see a lot more content of Hunter from the Owl House than most of the other characters from the show, which I disagree with slightly because Lumity still gets a lot of spotlight in the fandom, and also Hunter is actually well written and has depth, unlike a lot of early fandom male characters, but let's not get into that. Stuff like this is why in the early 2000s you'd see a lot of gay ships, even if the male characters involved might have way less chemistry than the female characters in the more canon straight ships. What I'm saying is, I understand people who are hesitant to jump straight into giving Asha her star boyfriend as a means to fix the movie, because a few people seem to do this while sidelining Asha. I've seen people reason that it's because some people doing these rewrites can't relate to a black girl protagonist just being a strong, independent woman all on her own, and feel the need to give her a romance plot because there's something they can relate to. I feel like I can mitigate this, though, because not only can I not really relate to the romance for reasons, I can relate to Asha in the original movie. Heavily. I don't know, something about being a younger woman who grew up in a certain way suddenly getting some perspective, realizing the world she lives in is screwed and needs fixing, and feeling frustrated that none of the adults around her see it how she does and don't want to fix things because everything's fine just the way it is, so why try and get more out of it, right? And there's ways to write a movie like this and make the female protagonist strong and independent and also in love. Heck, Pixar just did it in Elemental. Ember and Wade's romance is important to the story, but I'd argue the bigger focus is on Ember's relationship with her father and her struggle with wanting to make him happy while she's learning that it's okay to make sure that what she's doing is what she truly wants to do with her life. I think it's totally possible to write Asha in a similar way. Plus, Wish is an anniversary piece. Why wouldn't you have a romance subplot when a lot of your classic movies have that sort of thing? The other scrap concept piece is the one where Queen Amaya is evil alongside Magnifico. Also them having a cat. For a movie that passes the Bechdel test, I'd be hard-pressed to tell you anything about Queen Amaya's character that isn't just, she's the queen, or she loves her husband. At the very least, if she were evil, she would have been more fun, you know? As she is in the final film, she's just a bland good guy that isn't a character until the plot finds a spot for her to fill in the third act of the movie. And I'm putting the cat back because I think we could use a really good villain sidekick of some sort. Again, you're doing an homage to classic Disney, and you passed up your chance to play homage to some great evil animal sidekicks like Lucifer, Flotsam and Jetsam, Iago. Second note, I am by no means a professional. I am an art student who just got way too upset and artistically impulsive after seeing a mid-Disney movie. A lot of these story decisions that I make in this video might actually suck nuts. I accept that. But more importantly, I am in no way affiliated with, associated with, I have nothing to do with the Walt Disney Animation Studios, and I probably will never have any kind of position at the Walt Disney Company after posting this, though to be frank, and Ollie, I think my chance of getting hired were squashed the moment I decided to get mad at the chief creative officer of Disney for saying Sleeping Beauty was painted with watercolors when it was gouache. It kind of got a little funnier when, after I posted that video, I found out something very funny in hindsight. Gouache is usually mixed with water when used in painting, so by technicality, gouache is watercolor. So yeah, it's entirely possible Jennifer Lee just called it watercolor on the basis that it's mixed with water to paint, not that it's actual watercolor paint. So, Jennifer Lee, if you're seeing this somehow, sorry about all that. Sleeping Beauty's not this kind of watercolor, though. The most important thing here I want to say in regards to Disney and not being affiliated with them is that I mean no ill will towards any of the creatives who worked on Wish. I know enough about the animated film pipeline to know that you guys are basically artists being commissioned by the corporate bigwigs to make the movie that they want. I am not mad at you guys. I am mad at whoever didn't give you enough time to make this movie better. And I don't just mean on Wish, guys. Like, I know they didn't say anything explicit in the Making of Wish documentary that would imply that they were on a time crunch, but I did see that Frozen 2 documentary, and good God. But yeah, I don't work for Disney, I'm not associated with the Walt Disney Company whatsoever, and I do not mean any sort of ill will towards the people who worked on this movie. I am just an animation student who feels the need to put this disclaimer here so I don't get blacklisted. And a lot of my decisions on how I'd rewrite this movie probably aren't even that good to begin with. I fully accept that. Third note is that, obviously, there will be spoilers. I can't go over how I'd rewrite a movie without talking about how the original movie ends. So if, for some ungodly reason, you'd like to watch this movie, then maybe just, go pull it up on your dubious website of choice and come back to me, because I really don't recommend spending money on this thing. Still here? Cool. Now let's just get to the big question then. As an animation major, how would I rewrite Disney's Wish? then, I like how the original movie started, which was with a book opening, like in older Disney films, like Robin Hood or some of the older princess movies. That was good. That was fun. We're making the contents of the book different this time. I couldn't think of any other way to show what I'd do outside of just making it animatic, so here we go.
Once upon a time, in a far-off land, the night sky was full of magic. The stars were alive and roamed the night, listening to any poor soul who would treat them with their wish. And on most nights, even ground them. The stars, however, were too generous for their own good, granting most every wish that came their way. And one day, one of the wishes went horribly wrong. Was it fear? Revenge taken out by a mortal man? Whatever happened, the stars began to disappear from the night after this wish went awry. One by one, until there was nothing left to wish on, people were plunged into an age of despair. But then word began to spread of an island deep in the Mediterranean Sea. There lived a king who studied the magic of the world tirelessly and became a mighty sorcerer. A man who offered to help people's dream come true. This kingdom of Rose Ice thrived under the rule of their beloved king and queen, and those who moved there lived happily. Rosa's kindness and hospitality made everyone quickly forget why they even worried about what happened to the stars.
Then, we lead right into the princess, Asha, studying with her friends Dahlia and Simon while they work in the kitchen. Instead of Asha being a regular girl who lives in Rosas with her mom and grandpa, she's the princess. King Magnifico and Queen Amaya are her parents.
Biologically.
I know most people have opted to make her their adopted daughter in their own rewrites if they go this route, and I get the sentiment. Evil step-parents are a staple of old fairy tales, and yeah, she doesn't look like either of them, but that doesn't mean they can't still be related by blood. I mean, Encanto just came out before this movie. We all saw Pedro and Alma and how they had the whitest looking daughter ever as Peppa. But who's to say either Magnifico and Amaya couldn't have had a bit of North African in their bloodline, especially considering the time period. And with the rise in Disney media, most notably Disney TV animation, Disney Channel originals like Descendants, as well as a main studio film like Frozen 2 having plot lines revolving around the protagonists coming to terms with the fact that their biological family are the bad guys here, I feel like we could get away with Asha's parents being the villains in a feature film and her not being able to resolve things peacefully and just having to rebel. I also know there's a charm there to having the protagonist be a normal girl with no magic or royal blood, and I get that. I just think the reasoning for that creative decision is a bit silly. I guess from a marketing standpoint, it still makes sense, something people won't see Wish if they think it's a princess movie, but from a writing standpoint, this quote from Jennifer Lee saying it wouldn't make sense for her to carry any of the burdens of whatever societal structure she was in at the beginning of the movie doesn't sit right with me. I know they mean that in the context of, like, being a princess, and how as a princess you'll be in charge one day and have that weight on your shoulders from day one, but, like, if you're trying to appeal to modern teens, burdens of a societal structure, especially for an Afro-Latina Disney heroine whose whole story arc is rebelling against an unfair government, the burdens of a societal structure is going to be something people notice and hang on to no matter what background you give her. And need I remind you that people have been able to relate to other Golden Age Disney heroines without you having to make them normal people? First one that comes to mind specifically is Ariel, and how many LGBT plus people can relate to her, which makes a lot of sense if you know who wrote the music in The Little Mermaid. But yeah, Asha is Magnifico and Amaya's biological daughter in this version of the story. That's what I wanted to get at. Also, I'm afraid to say it, we're getting rid of her grandpa, Sabino. I unfortunately didn't see all the lovely cut content of him until after I'd already settled on the idea of Asha being rewritten to be Magnifico and Amaya's daughter. He had a song, guys. The end credits song was supposed to be his, we were robbed! But his final iteration in the movie is very much only there when the plot needs to be relevant. And the cast of named characters in the final film is bloated as it is, but I'll get to that in a second. Another thing I wish I'd caught before deciding to cut him was how, according to the art book, they designed him to be an homage to Milt Kahl, one of the 9 Old Men. If you don't know, the 9 Old Men are like legendary Disney animators, worked for the studio from the 1920s to the 80s, just overall amazingly talented people. Aside from Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston, 2 of the 9 Old Men who are now famous for not only writing Disney animation Illusion of Life, a book I have unfortunately never gotten my hands on, but have seen numerous times on many of my classes' recommended reading lists, but also coined the 12 Principles of Animation itself. Milt Kahl is one of the more talked about of the 9 Old Men. Not because he wrote any sort of books or helped influence animation as a whole, but on account of the fact that he was just insanely good at hand-drawn animation. And the team behind Wish wanted to take inspiration from his more angular and rhythmic character designs and animation work when creating Sabino. Personally, I love that. But also, there's plenty of other ways we can honor Milt Kahl without making a whole character. And when I really thought about it, I wasn't sure how many Disney fans, even diehard ones, would be able to look at Sabino and be like, oh wow, they're referencing Milt Kahl! My solution? Give people head swaggles. This is something Milt Kahl did a lot in his work, because it's really hard to do lip sync in traditional cell animation while the head is tilting like this. Even today with onion skins and digital animation, it's still difficult. And he would just do this, because he knew he was talented enough to pull it off, and he was right. And this movie already has a handful of shots that are straight up homages and copies of animated sequences from classic Disney films. That, and you've gone on record saying you didn't make this movie 2D because of limitations, but they did nothing interesting with the cinematography or character animation that couldn't have been done with cell animation. Can you tell that I'm upset that they skimped out on doing 2D animation for this film? Anyways, since it would be no doubt easier to pull off in 3D, whenever it may be relevant or whenever a talking scene seems a bit too plain, I would have them swaggle their head as they talk. Anyone who knows Milt Kahl will know that you're paying homage to him if you add these. Sorry, Milt Kahl tangent aside, back to the scene of Asha, Dahlia, and Simon in the kitchen. The point of this scene with Asha and Dahlia is to 1. Establish Asha's familial connections, as well as establish the fact that she's studying because her father is teaching her magic. And she's turning 18 soon, which is when her father is going to let her start helping with the big, royal decision-making things, giving her responsibilities that come with running a kingdom. 2. Establish Asha and Dahlia's friendship, which they tried to do in the original movie, but it falls flat because there's also 6 other friends they tried to shove in there to make a very bad Seven Dwarves reference. And even if they weren't references first and characters second, 7 separate friends in a 90-minute film is too much. So we're knocking it down to just 2 important friends out of the 7. We got Dahlia and her younger brother Simon, plus their 5 little brothers who they support by working in the royal kitchen. So if someone insists that you need the Seven Dwarves reference, we still got one. Just a more manageable one. Oh, but what about the original Snow White? That had 7 friends in 90 minutes? Snow White had a total of 11 named characters. The dwarves, Snow White, the Evil Queen, the Prince, and the Huntsman. And even then, the Huntsman is only important for a couple of scenes, and the Prince only shows up at the very beginning and at the very end. So we could theoretically say there's only 9 named characters the audience is supposed to care about during the 90-minute runtime. Wish has 14. You've got Asha, Valentino, the Star, Magnifico, Queen Amaya, the 7 friends, Asha's mother, and her grandfather Sabino. And to really show you how insane that is, Encanto's large cast of named characters only has 12. The movie treats all of them as characters to care about during the entire runtime, and it's just, no, it's not gonna work. Not if all you got is 90 minutes. We're cutting down the characters. 3. Establish Valentino and why he's here. One big universal complaint about the original movie that I also share is that Valentino has no reason to be there aside from, oh, funny baby goat sell toys. But I'm gonna give him a reason. After all, Magnifico is teaching Asha how to be a sorcerer. And what is a good sorcerer without a familiar to help you with your magical studies? Extra tidbits of the rest of Valentino's rewrite makes sense. Familiars are only given the magic to speak once their sorcerer they serve is determined to have completed their training. Kind of like in the Owl House when a witch completes their training and only then do they get their talisman, is the same idea. So Valentino can't speak yet. Okay, wait, I lied. There's one more thing I want to establish. Maybe not outright in this hypothetical Disney film, but just in the video essay in general real quick. One of the complaints I remember when it came to Asha's character is how she's written as a generic quirky girl main character like in other modern Disney films, but without much of a reason for her to act like this. Rapunzel and Anna are like that because both of them grew up in isolation and haven't really gotten a chance to interact with other people in the outside world. I think people also criticize Mirabel in Encanto for the same thing, but I had less of a problem with that, since to me, her acting quirky came off as just like her trying her best, guys. Her whole family is special and they have powers, so she has to stand out somehow, That, and she's like 15. 15-year-old girls can sometimes just be like that. Source, I am a girl. I was 15 once. I was like that. Honestly, I feel that's another thing people should take into account about Disney protagonists being quirky girls. Most of them are teenagers. Like, even Rapunzel, though technically she's an adult by the end of the film, she's still only 18 by the end. And it's not even relegated to modern Disney protagonists. Ariel in the original Little Mermaid was a quirky girl as well, and no one batted an eye because it was well explained. She's a mermaid who's literally never met a human before, so of course she's gonna act weird. But you don't need fantastical elements in a film to explain why your girl protagonist is a bit weird. I don't know, maybe I'm just traumatized by the whole situation around Turning Red, where a bunch of reviewers wrote off the film as badly written because the characters were too cringe or unrealistic or unrelatable when they were just, teenage girls. What I'm saying is sometimes girls can just be like that, but you need to write it correctly so it doesn't come across like you're just trying to fill a mold. Like with Asha, the only thing in the film explaining why she's acting like this is her job interview is making her nervous. That's it. And so I tried to think of something else to make Asha being a quirky Disney girl make sense. And then an idea hit me. I need to do something Disney isn't brave enough to. Valentino has some moments here and there, helping Asha get the books and things she needs for her studies, actually doing something, up until he starts bleeding at her. And then here we get the, oh, if only we could understand you joke, before Asha realizes he's bleeding about the time.
Oh, Figadus, the boats arrive soon! I'm gonna be late for the midday tour!
I don't think you'll get to the docks in time on foot. You know what this is a good opportunity for?
No, absolutely not. I'm not flying there. I haven't gotten it right at all, and the last thing new residents need to see is the princess of their new home kingdom going splat on the ground.
What about all your books you need to clean up? I don't think you have time for that. And Dolly and I still need to...
I've got that covered. Valentino, can you take these back to my room for me? See you two after my lesson!
Good luck, Asha!
I've got a good feeling about it!
And so Asha keeps running and rushing through the palace, out into the courtyard and into the main city, up until she finally finds her way to the harbor. And then...
I'm here! Whew, just 1 second. Let me catch my breath.
I think it'd be cute if Roses' own princess gave tours to the new arrivals. Like, come on. And here's where Welcome to Rosas would go, just like in the original film. Now, we gotta talk about the music. I'm gonna drop a bomb here, I think. I don't mind the music in this movie. Like, it has its glaring problems, but I find myself still listening to some of the soundtrack despite everything. I think the only songs I actively avoid are, funnily enough, Welcome to Rosas, because I think it just, feels kind of boring. It's very much like a, oh, we have the family madrigal at home. The other ones I actively avoid are This Is the Thanks I Get, because Benjamin and Julia do not know how to write a good villain song, and of course...
Watch out world, here I are!
But everything else in this album I think is passable for the most part. I mean, I'm nowhere near qualified to talk about more than lyrics and stuff anyways. I know basics, like how you shouldn't emphasize the wrong syllable or else it'll sound wrong. Great example! City of Rosas, putting the emphasis on many instead of many. And he built Rosas many years ago, no. But yeah, aside from that, I think the actual melodies and instrumentations are fine. Then again, I might just have bad taste in music. I like jukebox musicals, I unironically listen to Imagine Dragons, and the one original story I have in the works is set to a lot of 80s and 90s rock songs as like a central thing. But I think that's a good thing. In videos like this, it's really easy to fall into the trap of just dumping all over everything in something you hate. Like, everything in this movie is bad, it has nothing of value, is something really easy to say, I've noticed. I don't know, maybe it'll make my opinion a little more fresh in that regard. Wish isn't all bad. There's inklings of good things in it. They just, needed more time to cook and a solid script to go off of, especially in terms of the music. But yeah, if you do hate the music in Wish and everything it stands for, I'd just go watch either Brainless Mastermind or Aster Rhyme Master's videos about the music. There's also Klaxon Cares Too Much if you really want something to listen to, because girl, are you good? They do a pretty good job at explaining where the songs fail, and they're way more qualified to talk about the music than I am. All I'll be doing in this video is just proposing lyric changes, and even then, Jonah Hu already did a pretty solid one for Welcome to Rosa, so I'd just check out his video about it. If I were ever allowed, I'd just yoink all his lyrics and only change 2 lines around to have Asha expositing about how King Magnifico is also her dad. Well, that and one other thing. I'll go into detail about how badly this affects the original movie's later story beats later, but one big issue this movie has is just how generic the townspeople is. Not just story-wise either. I opened up the art book and realized that the 2-page spread at the start showing all the townsfolk designs was just the same 2 rows of figures, just with swapped palettes. And I get it, in an animated film set in a kingdom of this scale, you can't really afford to give unique designs to every single person living in it, but 3 of these townies are shown consistently in the movie with the purpose of, remember their faces for later so you can feel bad for them, and I feel nothing, because they look like every other person in this town. What I do, firstly, make them stand out a little bit more design-wise, but more importantly, I'm inserting spoken dialogue bits into Welcome to Rosas. Little breaks in the song for Asha to address some of the townies by name and exchange short pleasantries on her tour, so we can at least know a couple of them more intimately. Like in the opening number of Belle and Beauty and the Beast, where we get to know the baker, the bookshop keeper, and all sorts of other silly one-off characters. I remember this kid getting chased by a pig in the opening number of Beauty and the Beast more than I remember any of these people. But anyways, Welcome to Rosas is supposed to serve as an exposition song, and thanks to the little rewrite that I've already done to the storybook exposition in this video, there's actually a point to this song talking about the wish ceremonies. So in the original movie, it talks about how Magnifico takes people's wishes and sometimes grants them in the storybook exposition, and then it rehashes the same exposition in this song, which... why? As long as the storybook exposition isn't about Magnifico's wish magic habits, then the song should be fine contextually. Alright, song ends, Asha goes back to the castle and up to Magnifico's study, but she's intercepted along the way by her mother, Queen Amaya, as well as her familiar, Charo, that one cat from the concept art that also got the boot before the final film. They give her a pep talk before she heads up to her lesson with her father. It's the big one. If she proves herself, her dad will let her actually be a princess in more than just name. She'll get a say in royal duties and political decisions. Overall, Asha's just very, very nervous about all of this. It's a lot of pressure to put on the shoulders of a 17-year-old girl just doing her best. But hey, at least her mother believes in her. Now remember, stand up straight, be ladylike, don't forget to curtsy, and tell him...
Tell him that he's the best sorcerer in Rosas so I can kiss up to him. I know, Mom.
No. Tell him you love him. That's the only proper way for a loving daughter to kiss up to her father. Well, and show that you've been listening and learning. Both are good.
I can do this! I'm so ready for this! I'm ready for this, right, Charo? Oh, never mind. I don't need your reassurance. I can reassure myself! You're a talented sorcerer, Asha. You're young, but you got this.
When we get to the study, the audience is introduced to Magnifico. We get a feel for his character. He's a nice guy, a loving father, someone who just wants the best for his daughter, so he teaches her magic, gets her ready to take over the kingdom and rule it just like he does. Sort of. One thing from the movie I thought could have been expanded upon was the fact that Asha draws. They only acknowledge it a couple of times, and it's usually in situations where the same information is already being conveyed because she's talking about it as she's showing her wishes. Though, to be fair, in this one case, Star doesn't know what Magnifico looks like, so drawing really does help there. But what makes me think they should have played it up more is the one time she's showing Magnifico her skills in the interview, and he makes a snide remark about whether or not art is considered a talent.
It's a goat.
Oh,
it's hopping.
Certainly.
See?
Oh, again, that is a unique talent. Do we call that a talent?
So I think it'd be cute if we have Magnifico use a magic scepter to cast his spells, and Asha, she uses a pencil. One that she probably made herself considering when pencils were invented. Oops. She draws shapes in the air and they do magic. It's like the Owl House glyph magic, but you don't need paper, you just draw in the air itself. And Magnifico thinks the whole drawing things to cast spells is very immature for a sorcerer at our level. See, because I think the whole "can you call that a talent" comment would be good to keep. because it's a nice subtle way of showing that Magnifico's not a nice guy, and even lets the mask slip a little bit around his daughter. You know, like a whole, "Oh, I'm so proud of you, sweetie, you're doing so great, even though you're still drawing your spells like a baby, but you're doing so well with it." You know, like the other abusive Disney villain parent.
I see a strong, confident, beautiful young lady. Oh, look, you're here too.
Despite him being snide about her methods of magic casting, he's still trying to teach her what he knows, all to mold her into a good ruler fit to lead Rosas. All that starts going out the window once he decides that she's gotten good enough and it's time for her to see the wishes. Also, as an aside, I think it'd be fun to insert a bit here where Magnifico lets Asha try and use her magic to open the big mirror door, but she can't get it right, so he has to do it for her. Would make a nice callback for later in the film, you know?
Is it like this?
No, you...
Maybe this.
You need
or
to...
this.
Asha.
Maybe this.
Asha! My little starlight. Like this.
Oh, got it. Saving that. Wow.
Behold, the wishes of Rosas, each belonging to someone in this fair kingdom.
They're more beautiful than I could ever imagine. Oh, there's Marie, the baker.
Wishing to bake the best baguettes in all the land.
And Louis is right here too.
Yes, a musician, that one, right?
I never expected them to feel so... alive.
Well, of course. They're the hopes and dreams of everyone in Rosas. Each one has a little bit of the dreamer inlaid in them, given to us to protect with our lives. Side effects of giving away your wish may include sadness, depression, a feeling of missing something, nausea, drowsiness, dizziness, fainting, and eternal slumber. King Magnifico and the royal family of Rosas are not responsible for any damages to one's sense of self or loss of purpose in life.
Now, this is the one scene in the movie I felt was, fine. The only issue I have with it is it sets up some genuinely interesting things and doesn't really, expand on them in any meaningful way. It's like having a car you need to build, right? You have all the pieces, all the tools, all the budget in the world to get new bits if you lose something, but you throw out the blueprints and decide to just build a cup holder. Yeah, you have a functioning cup holder that can hold your cups just fine, but now you have all these spare car parts lying around it like some sort of car graveyard and memorials to what could have been. There's two things I'd change about this scene. One, since Sabino isn't in this rewrite, it's Dahlia's and Simon's wish that Asha finds that leads her to questioning Magnifico. And two, and I think this is really important for selling Magnifico as a villain, people don't know that they forget their wish when they give them up. You know how I said earlier that wish isn't all bad and it has inklings of good ideas? Magnifico's one of them. Despite me really hating how they handled him later in the film, with him getting possessed by an evil spellbook and removing all the nuance from his sudden heel turn to villainy, there's one thing I'll give the writers. They managed to write a convincing manipulator and narcissist for a villain. The book thing just makes it seem less natural because, again, taking away the nuance by making him possessed or whatever. Looking at the art book, the idea behind Magnifico as a character was to design and write a guy who looks like a conventional Disney good guy. Handsome face, using colors like white and blue in his outfit, which are associated with good, not to mention him founding a whole kingdom where all people are welcome. How neat! But they also wanted to add an underlying layer of just badness to it. One you don't spot right away if you don't know where to look. It's a fun idea if you're doing a return to form Disney villain. And I don't know if this is because they wrote him so horribly or the writers somehow hit the nail on the head with making him a master manipulator, but what other Disney villain can you say has a whole gaggle of people watching the film they're in, seeing their actions as they happen, seeing everything they did, and then coming away from the film going, well, actually, he was in the right the whole time? Oh, but he says people give their wishes willingly. That means it's optional. The confirmed wish count in Magnifico's observatory is 1,923. Yes, it's a reference to the year Disney was founded and doesn't seem that big for a whole kingdom, but keep in mind that this isn't counting the no doubt numerous citizens who have already had their wish granted, and therefore they're not being kept in the observatory. With him granting one wish a month and guesstimating how long ago he founded Rosas, let's bump that number up to 2,200. Now, look at this map. Look at how big the marketplace is on the map. Do you know how big this place is in the movie? Not very. Look at how big the amphitheater is. Also not very big in the movie. Look at how piddly small the hamlet is. Look at this overhead shot of the whole main city. Look at how big the harbor is on this map. Do you know how big those boats are in the movie? Do you know? Do you think more than 2,000 people live in this kingdom? Plus, this line is part of the bit where Magnifico is covering his butt to an impressionable youth. Are you gonna really take everything he's saying at face value? Oh, but he doesn't even charge rent. People live in roses for free. How the hell does he make money without taxes? How is the economy not in shambles? Also, in the 1200s in the Mediterranean, trade was a game changer if you were a neutral state like Rosas is, so it would be really stupid for him not to make people pay taxes. Also, don't take a bad line from a villain song so bad it got memed to hell as facts in this case, you clown. You absolute fool. So while I think the easiest fix here is to take away the evil book so his villainy seems a bit more, of his own doing, I'll try and satisfy the Magnifico was right crowd by also throwing in something to make you see him more as a villain right away. He doesn't tell people that they forget their wishes. If you haven't seen the movie, the lore is that when you give your wish to Magnifico, you forget it. You put the fate of your dreams in his hands, and he gets to decide whether or not they come true or not. This is the big thing that had me like, no, I don't care if Rosas is a nice place to live in, or if Magnifico is a good king. Taking people's wishes in such a way that they forget what their hopes and dreams are is really scary, and I don't like it. He's evil. Like, imagine being an art kid, and then when you're 18, your dream to be a great artist is suddenly taken from you, and you lose all motivation to do art. You lose your drive to create and just go about your life without that one piece of yourself that made you you, and you might stay that way because the king doesn't think your wish is worthy of being granted.
Do we call that a talent?
That's terrifying, and I don't think people would be so quick to give up their wishes if they knew that. So instead, Magnifico will spin it as a weight being lifted off the person's shoulder. Your wish isn't on your mind because now Magnifico has it safe in his castle. You don't need to worry about it anymore. Instead of them forgetting it, they're simply not worrying about it as much as they used to. This would make this one scene where he spins it to Asha as, oh, they give their wishes to me and I make them forget their worries, slightly more sinister in this regard. And it doesn't sit right with Asha. People literally don't know what they're missing because no one is being told they're forgetting their wishes and who they are fundamentally as a person. And to add a little extra evil onto it, I want to try and sprinkle in people that are in the same position as Simon. Not just 18-year-olds who just gave up their wish feeling depressed afterwards. People who are older who never got better. People who feel depressed and could never connect the dots to figure out why. You'd see them in the background at first, but once the scene with Magnifico happens and it finally comes to light that people forget their wishes once they give them up, it all clicks for Asha. But before we get that whole realization, Asha has to find her friend's wish, right? And so we find out Dahlia's wish. She wishes to be a role model for the younger generation. This would make sense to me, since in this rewrite she's an older sister and guardian of her 6 siblings. It works, but we get the same conclusion from the original movie. Her wish is too vague, so Magnifico can't grant it.
What kind of role model would she want to be? A delinquent one that inspires the children to misbehave? And how far would that misbehavior go? Breaking the law? Destroying Rosas?
But Dahlia's not like that.
I know you think that, dear, but a king or princess must be careful.
Well, at least Simon's wish will get granted, right? Are you serious? What's wrong with Simon's wish?
Here, I'll just show you. Simon's wish is to be the king's most valiant knight.
Well, what's wrong with that one? That seems pretty straightforward.
Starlight, do you have any idea how many valiant knights we have working at the castle? Every one of them had a wish like this. Too many people in one job, sweetie. And besides, Simon's already a really good cook and baker, like his sister. I think it's best if he stays there.
But he doesn't want to be a baker. He wants to be a knight. He should be allowed to be what he wants to be, right?
I know you think so.
I know so.
Well, you're a bit young. You don't know anything.
There was a post I saw on Tumblr about how it's easy to defend a movie you like, but it hurts to have to defend a movie you don't like, because sometimes you'll see people disliking it for the wrong reasons. Great example, saying you don't like the live-action Little Mermaid because the Disney live-action remakes as a whole are just cheap cash grabs that prey on nostalgia while undermining the original film and how much all the creatives worked to make something remarkable and groundbreaking, and then having to tell someone, no, the movie isn't bad because Disney went woke and hired a black actress to play Ariel. It's a fantasy film, and mermaids aren't real. They can be whatever color you want. That's not even getting into how the above-ocean setting of the original 1989 Little Mermaid was inspired by Croatia, not Denmark as most people assume. And would you look at where Croatia is? The Mediterranean, which, if you couldn't tell by the movie I'm making this video about, has black people in it. Sorry, I saw someone comment on one of my videos that they think Wish is bad because too many woke people work at modern-day Disney or some garbage, and I felt the need to separate myself from that dumb criticism before anyone assumed anything. Anyways, this whole defending a bad film thing is something I feel the need to do a lot with Wish, because this scene in particular and Asha's argument for why Magnifico is wrong to handle the wishes the way he does often gets wildly misconstrued. People who either haven't seen the film or want to make their own message out of it say that Asha wants everyone's wish to be granted, regardless of whether or not they could be dangerous. As I'll touch on later, that's not at all what she's asking for. But the thing that got me more confused were people then claiming that Asha was really selfish in the film, or at least came off that way for trying to ask for more than this in a supposedly utopian kingdom. I mean, sure, it's because she originally just wanted her grandpa's wish to be granted, but like, there's something called an arc, guys. Despite everyone saying she doesn't have one, she very much does, as far as I can tell. She starts with her grandpa and mother's wishes, and then once the danger amps up after she gets her grandpa's wish but not her mom's, she realizes that she can't stop there. It would be selfish to stop there. She has to go back and free all the wishes, not just her mom and grandpa's, because if she doesn't, Magnifico is going to do something infinitely worse to them than just leave them ungranted. And if Asha, one of the only people in Rosas who knows Magnifico's true intentions, doesn't do anything, then who will? Honestly, this one thing people single out when critiquing Asha as a character gives me the same vibe as those early 2000s posts about how older Disney films are bad, actually, because feminism. Cinderella is about how as long as you're pretty, a handsome man will come in to save you right when you need him to, and you don't need to do anything, actually. Despite the fact that Cinderella is in an abusive household at a time where marriage was really the only way out of a situation like that, and the point of her not fighting back against her evil stepmother and stepsisters is because Cinderella stays kind to the people in the world around her in spite of the hand she's dealt, and she is then rewarded for being kind to others. And that's not even touching on the fact that she doesn't even want to go to the ball so she can marry the prince. She wants to go to the ball because she wants to have one night where she can do something nice instead of working her butt off all day. And she doesn't even realize that he was the prince until after the ball. Ariel's story is about changing everything about yourself to get a man, ignoring the fact that Ariel was already into humans and the surface and wanted to know so badly what it was like to live on land, and her crush on Eric and her dad destroying her collection of human memorabilia was just the push she needed to try. Belle's story is about Stockholm Syndrome, even though she could leave whenever she wanted and chose to stay because the beast risked his life to save her from wolves, and then he began to grow and change as a person, and then Belle started falling in love with him. And that's just a handful. People like to think kids' movies are so simple and that none of the story decisions had any kind of thought behind them besides making something palatable for dumb little babies. But if you watch them for more than the first 20 minutes, you'll remember, oh right, there's a reason the studio was a juggernaut in the animated film industry for 100 freaking years. This is how it feels when I see people boil down Asha's motivations to something so stupid as all wishes should be granted and I want my grandpa's wish to be granted because he deserves it. Because that's not what she wants in the first place, and she learns that her grandpa isn't the only person whose wish she needs to save from Magnifico. She starts by dipping her toes in, sure, but by the end, she needs to dive in. And while pondering all these critiques, I realized something. People think Asha is selfish and out of line for another reason. Because she's just a village rando trying to tell the king, who's been running this kingdom since before she was born, how he should do his job. She sure as heck doesn't know how to run a kingdom, or even how Magnifico specifically is running the kingdom. She just knows, hey, maybe having only one guy arbitrarily decide which wishes are bad or good is not a great system, which I've already stated that I'm same about all that. And I know I've seen some people questioning, well, Asha's lived here her whole life, how has she not realized this until now? And then other people pointing out, hey, have you realized that the way she talks about, oh, you forget without regret, sounds a lot like people in cults that are conditioned to think that stuff like this is normal? Anyways, the important talking point is not whether or not Asha is right in this situation. It's about whether she's qualified as some quirky village girl to make that call. And I feel like we mitigate this here, because whereas someone like Asha in the original film would just be some village rando from the hamlet trying to tell everyone that the beloved king who grants wishes is evil, actually. The Asha in this rewrite is a princess, and that would make her sudden switch flip make way more sense, because she's not just some village rando with no leg to stand on. She's the king's daughter. Out of everyone in Rosa, she's the one who's seen him at his most vulnerable. She still looks up to him, but not nearly as much as everyone else here. She's seen him at his best and worst. She's seen him at his most human. And most importantly, she knows quite a bit more than most people how a kingdom should be run. She really views him as her dear old dad first and an ultra-powerful sorcerer king second. She's the one here who's most likely to immediately see all his imperfections and flaws when presented with something that feels off to her. In this instance, the wishes. She doesn't quite realize why yet, but Asha gets the feeling that a man like her dad, who's still very much a human being with flaws despite the pedestal that people in Rosas put him on, probably shouldn't be allowed to play God with people's hopes and dreams, even if he says his intentions are good. Something just doesn't sit right with her about that. Plus, something we established by adding dialogue segments to Welcome to Rosas is that Asha also feels like she knows a lot of the townsfolk a lot better than Magnifico does. She fraternizes with all sorts of people because she's going to be in charge one day and she wants to be these people's friends, not just their ruler. She knows Dahlia, knows her better than she thinks her dad knows her, which is why she's so steadfast about her not being a bad person, undeserving of her wish. And from there, she also feels like she knows plenty of citizens enough to stand up to her dad and say, hey, this isn't fair for anyone here. Dahlia is good. The people of Rosas are good. They deserve more than this. Back to the scene at hand, though, Asha argues that if he can't grant her wish, why can't he at least, give the wish back? So Dahlia can pursue it herself? Asha figures if it is bad, Magnifico can stop Dahlia if she starts going down that path, since, he's the king, and also a powerful sorcerer. By the way, that's not me making this up for this rewrite, that's actually how the scene goes in the movie, and I hate that everyone construes it as Asha just wanting every wish to be granted, because that's not what she's asking for, guys.
Can't you just give them back instead?
Excuse me?
The wishes you're not going to grant, you could just give them back. Then, I don't know, the people can try to pursue them themselves. If they're dangerous, then they can be stopped. But if they're not...
You've completely missed the point. People come here because they know they can't make their own dreams come true. The journey's too hard, it is too unfair. They give their wishes to me, willingly, and I make it so they forget their worries.
You make it so they forget the most beautiful part of themselves. And they don't know what they're missing. But you do. And now I do. It's not fair. My Saba is good. The people of Rosas are good. They deserve more.
I decide what everyone deserves.
So yeah, since I think the scene in the film was pretty alright at what it was trying to do, I'd just keep it the way it is. Magnifico declares that he is the one who gets to decide what wishes come true or not, no one else. He decides what everyone deserves. Asha finally notices her father's mask slipping and realizes that he's keeping the wishes as a method to hold power over the people of Rosas, to have control.
Return to your room. Obviously, I will not be letting you graduate to Royal Assistant. We'll try again another day.
What? But I studied and everything! I practiced my spells! I recited all the alchemical runes from memory! I did everything right! I can't graduate from apprenticeship because I asked some questions? That's not fair!
I said! Return to your room. This is not up for discussion.
There's also something else to be said here about adults who dismiss kids' opinions because you're young and I've been along longer than you, so I know how the world works better than you do. But this is a Disney film. We can't really get into that, I don't think, so let's move along. We cut to Asha in her room later that night, where Valentino tries to comfort her the best way his little baby goat self can, by cuddling. And the Queen Amaya enters, being preceded by Charo, because I think it'd be cute if he announces her entry like a little royal servant would. Think like the little seahorse and the little mermaid.
Presenting Her Majesty, Queen Amaya.
Hi, Charo.
Mi cielo, I heard what happened with you and your father. Is everything alright? Overall, this scene is meant to portray Amaya as a seemingly loving mother who also just wants the best for Asha. And she tries to tell Asha that Magnifico just wants that. He's so careful with the wishes because he wants to keep the kingdom safe, to keep them safe, to keep Asha, his beloved only daughter, his little star, safe. Asha says she understands that, but it was just so confusing to her. All the things he said about it. Amaya assures her that it's alright to be confused about how the world works at her age. She'll give her time to understand. Asha looks out at the sunset and sees her father performing a wish ceremony down in the courtyard, and this serves the same purpose as in the movie, where we're shown a wish ceremony in action. We see people give up their wish, and we see one get granted. One thing I don't think they establish in the movie is whether or not it's optional or a requirement to give your wish to the king when you're of age in Rosas. For the sake of making sure the story makes sense to everyone, the scene establishes that giving up your wish is a requirement. You want to live in Rosas? Then you gotta give up your wish to the king. But hey, maybe he'll grant it one day, you know? And now that Asha knows what's going on behind the scenes, knowing that there's a chance that these people's greatest dreams and desires will never be granted and they'll never know what could have been, she just feels so icky about the whole thing. It's only when the crowd clears later that night that she decides to let her feelings out. She sings for a bit in her room before she decides that she can't stay there. She needs to go out on the town and let her feelings out that way. Asha and Valentino sneak out the window, and yeah, you might have figured it out, this is the This Wish segment. I'm gonna get right into it. This is by far the most passable song in the whole soundtrack, in my opinion. Other people might argue that This Is the Thanks I Get should get that title, but let me put it this way. This Wish only has one line that makes me mad. This Is the Thanks I Get has a lot more. And for those who might be watching this video and haven't seen my other content, I actually posted a cover of This Wish showcasing how I'd rewrite the lyrics to make them fit the context of this movie rewrite better. I did a Julia Michaels. I made my own demo version of This Wish. Vocals-wise, at least. And boy howdy, I probably should have done a couple more takes before I posted that thing. Fun fact, I sang some of the lines while I was getting over an insane cold. I was probably most definitely too congested to be singing such a vocally demanding song. God, there's a reason the peak of my high school choir career was a rap solo and a Hamilton medley. Anyways, I figured I could go into depth about my thought process. I started with looking into the more common criticisms from people who, know what they're actually talking about when it comes to music. Despite how I come across, I very much don't know a lot about composition or lyricism. I'm a high school choir girly. I know how to read what I'm given and sing on key, that's it. But I can write at least, and I've already got a melody and a whole other set of lyrics to work off of, so I figured it was manageable. Now, let's start with the big thing I went in knowing. The fact that people think This Wish is the most bland I Want song there is. And they're not wrong. Disney has written way better I Want songs in the past. Heck, even Just Around the Riverbend from Pocahontas does it better than this. I don't think it's bland really, just vague. I mentioned it briefly in my Asha X Star deep dive, but Julia Michaels barely had time to write this song. She finished it before the script was finalized and therefore had only minimal information to go off of in terms of how to connect it to the story.
The process was new, because I'd be like, oh, I'm done, and then they'd call me 2 days later and be like, oh, we have a new song and we need it done in like 3 weeks.
So I don't entirely blame her for this song ending up the way it is. I blame Disney for not only not giving her enough time, but not letting her rewrite it when the story did get finalized. They shot her in the foot before she could do it herself. Despite this, in the way too many times that I've seen this movie while doing research for this video, I found this song does have some kind of structure, and Asha does go through some kind of progression in it, despite everything it has going for it. In the first verse, she starts off wondering why she's the only one who sees things that are bad and why no one else is taking her seriously. When I speak, they tell me sit down and all that.
Floating there. Asha, helpless. Sit down. Calm down. I can't just...
And then in the first pre-chorus, she realizes that she might need to go into this alone and figure out how to fix things by herself. The second verse has her lamenting about how she didn't realize what was happening sooner and how she now feels this overflowing need to make up for it, but she can't let it out just yet because she rightfully realizes that she has no plan. This leads into the bridge / the timing change where she has the ambition to get things started, but she has no idea where to even start with dismantling the system Magnifico has built up around her. I'm past dipping my toes in, but I'm not past diving in. And then in the second pre-chorus, she decides to wish on a star about it. The art book mentions that the intention was that Asha does this because in a kingdom where the citizens are complacent and don't know what they're missing, the kindly king doesn't care about her feelings, and even her own family doesn't take her concerns seriously. A star in the sky is the only thing she trusts with her wish. Okay, yeah, that's what I think is going on in the original draft. How did I try to fix it? Well, firstly, we've got a slightly different context here. The unjust king that Asha is going against is also her dad, so there's extra layers of angst there. But a big thing I decided to add was a small dialogue piece at the start before the music starts. Like how in the soundtrack version of Part of Your World it starts with Ariel going,
"Maybe he's right. Maybe there is something the matter with me. I just don't see how a world that makes such wonderful things could be bad."
Then there's that first line. Aster Rhymemaster's video about this wish was one of the many things I watched when trying to figure out, why do people hate the music? I didn't think all of it was bad. And Rhymemaster mentions that this wish fails right out the gate because it sounds awkward when a song starts on a stressed word. The word isn't is stressed in this line, and it's the first word in it. A quick switch to if the truth instead of isn't truth clears that up. And weighed down is replaced with chained up because I noticed some people saying it's strange how the note goes up on weighed instead of down. You know, because that would have been a great lyrical cue to drop the melody a few notes like it's being weighed down. The next couple lines are just me changing things around to make the song less vague, open their eyes to all the lies in the original draft works, but also, what lies? If you're listening to the song without the context of the film, you don't know what Asha has discovered. Just that she's found something wrong and wants to tell people, but no one will listen. So just make it more applicable to the movie and then we're good. The last couple of lines barely change, mostly just to, again, have it apply better to the movie while also fitting the context of the rewrite's plot. And I'll get to the use of them and they instead of us or we in a minute. The first pre-chorus, again, connect it to the movie's plot. She hasn't decided to wish on a star yet at this point in the song, so there's no need to reference them guiding her yet. Instead, we call back to her father not taking her concerns seriously and how she's letting his words inspire her to make change instead. And then the one line in the song that makes me angry. Throw caution to every warning sign. I get what it's going for, throw caution to the wind and all that, but the way the original phrase is written, it's like you're throwing your fears away and discarding them. The line in the song implies that she's heeding all the warnings, which she's not. I tried to think of a couple ways to deal with this line, and honestly, some advice from me if you ever want to rewrite a song like this and get stuck on a line because you like what it's going for but can't think of how to reword it. Find the lyrics from a foreign language dub and see what they translate to. The French version of this wish writes it as, "And my fears I'll forget along the way," hence the new line, "And I'll throw all my fears off to the side." And the big one, instead of straight up deciding to make a wish, she starts it as a promise. A promise to change things and give her people a chance to make their dreams come true. But of course, she quickly realizes how hard that's going to be.
Yeah, who needs dad or some fancy royal advisor title? I'm still the princess. I'll just give the wishes back myself. I just need to... I'll go and... Oh gosh. We've got a long road ahead of us, Valentino.
I did away with "I never knew I needed room to grow" with "I never knew we had so far to go" in the first line to tie better into the story. It's not about her right now, it's about her plan to fix things. There's a long way to go and she's lamenting about how she's never realized this sooner because she's never questioned her father's methods. And now she's feeling rebellious to the point of wanting to tear all his rules apart, but she doesn't even know where to start. The bridge is mostly unchanged. The only thing I did was change up a couple lines from the "I'm not past diving into" something completely different, because I get what it's going for with "I'm past dipping my toes in, but I'm not past diving in." You know, showing that Asha's raring and ready to go, but she doesn't have a plan yet, so she can't really go all in yet. But the line is clunky, and they rhymed in with in. I decided to change the lines around to call back to Asha again about how she's never been good at thinking things through, but she knows something needs to be done because who knows how long things have been going on like this. And then again, try and make this all seem like a coherent story beat by having her go from "if I could just be pointed in just the right direction, knew where to go and what to do," to elaborating on exactly what she'll do with that guidance. She'll charge on forward with her head held high, just the way her dad always taught her to. Actually, speaking of that scene, I had an idea that I can't articulate with words, I just gotta show it through pure animatics, so just watch with me for a second.
My legs are shaking, but my head's held high. Way you always taught me to.
No way. No way! Dad said people used to wish on the stars for good luck before they all disappeared, right?
So with this last chorus, we're keeping the same energy as the original. She'll look up at that star to guide her, and she'll kiss her fears goodbye. Sure, there will be challenges ahead, but at least no one can say that she didn't try. And so she wishes for a chance. Specifically, she wishes to give them a chance for more than this. And who's them? The people of Rosas, of course. The one thing I want to emphasize in this song, Asha never uses us or we when she makes her wish to give people better lives. She hasn't realized yet that her father's way of ruling things has affected her quality of life too. She sings about the people of Rosas only, using the words them and their whenever she brings it up. I want to emphasize not only Asha's selflessness, but also how this will be her arc later in the story. She needs to come to terms with the fact that she doesn't need to suffer while giving everything she has to other people to better their lives. Her kindness is a great quality, but she needs to learn that she's just as deserving of that chance that she wished for as everyone else. It's an arc about her realizing that she cares too much, perhaps. I'll stop, I'm sorry. I'd imagine in this rewrite, this wish would end about the same way it does in the movie. But when Asha makes her wish, we actually see it manifest in front of her. It parallels the wishing ceremonies when Magnifico magically pulls a blue ball of magic out of someone and poof, that's their wish. But here, with Asha wishing on a star instead of doing it her father's way, her wish manifests differently. It manifests as a little dandelion-looking ball of light. And it's only when Asha blows on it that it comes apart, floating up into the sky toward that one lone star. Then the night sky suddenly lights up with a magical bright light. The whole kingdom sees it, their reactions are much the same as the movie, but with one difference. Amaya sees this light, and she knows this light. She runs to Magnifico's study to tell him, but he already knows. It affected the wishes.
We're being threatened.
But by who? Who would dare? Mireille, I think we've missed one. We come back to Asha. She's actively questioning what the light is and realizing she did something bad. Well, she must have. She makes a wish and does a sorcerer thing, and now something's come down from the sky, and something bad's about to happen. Her first instinct? Find whatever it was that just fell from the sky and put it back. She didn't see where it landed, but Valentino did, and he starts leading her toward a light shining somewhere deep in the forest. Asha and Valentino find a crater. Valentino sees what's in there first, but the audience doesn't. Then Asha peeks over the edge. It takes one look for her to realize what it is.
Oh no. Whoa, whoa! Catch it!
And then they give chase. It plays out much like in the original film, running wild through the woods to try and catch this mysterious glowing light. In an attempt to disorient it and slow it down, Asha magics a pair of pajamas off a clothesline and into the face of the glowing light, knocking it to the ground. But as she picks up the bundle, it suddenly zips away, a thread of yarn stuck to it. The yarn unravels and the chase is back on, all until Asha is finally able to catch up to it after it tangles itself up in a tree with the yarn. And it's not a monster. It's a boy. Just a young man who looks like he could use some help getting down. Or not.
Hi! Hi again.
Hello there.
Let me just... There we go. Oh! Hello, little goat friend.
What are you?
Oh, right. Hi, I'm a wishing star, from the sky.
From the what?
I heard you were wishing on me, so as a wishing star, it's my duty to grant your wish.
Wait, I thought all the wishing stars were supposed to grant wishes from the sky. Why are you here?
I've never done this before, miss. Plus, it's a really big wish. I wanted to make sure I got it right by coming down to you and making darn sure it gets granted.
This can't be right.
What can't?
This! You can't! Wait, I get it now. You're a star beast.
Now, hold on a moment. Ah!
My dad told me all about monsters like you. Wishing stars stay in the sky, but star beasts come down to consume wishes and cause trouble wherever they go. There's no way a twinkly heartthrob like you, who gets stuck in yarn, is a real wishing star.
Oh. Huh. Well, could a regular twinkly heartthrob do this? Bibbidi bobbidi boo.
It didn't work. When does the magic happen?
Oh, that is not right.
Hey!
Oh no.
I'm talking! I'm talking!
Yeah, Valentino sounds closer to his age this time around. Alan Tudyk is a very talented voice actor. I love his work. He has so much range. He was funny in this movie for a bit, but they spoiled it for the trailer for a cheap laugh, and it got old real quick. And I say this as someone who has watched this movie too many times. It also just felt really weird the moment you find out that Valentino is a baby goat. Like you can already tell that this is like a little goat, right? But he has a line later in the movie where he confirms that he is only 3 weeks old, and it hit me like a truck. Do you know how little that is? Do you know?
Who knew my voice would be this low?
No, stop it. Go directly to jail. Do not pass go. It's interesting how the voice came about, actually. From what I found out, originally Valentino was going to have a more childlike baby voice befitting a baby goat.
People of Roses! Hello! I come from the sky! I am here for you!
But when Alan Tudyk came into the booth and he did an older man voice for the character instead, everyone just loved it. I'm not changing it because I think the choice was inherently bad. I changed it because I had the thought of, hey, maybe the reason people don't like this goat character being super stupid and getting Asha caught all the time is because he sounds like a 50-year-old man and there's no cognitive dissonance. Like, maybe if he sounded more like a baby goat who thinks he knows more than he really does, but he's like, you know, he's very little, he really doesn't know that much, it'd be easier to not hate him. Then again, people still think Coda and Brother Bear is annoying, so maybe this doesn't fix it. Whatever, it's my rewrite. I've already said a lot of my creative choices might suck. We'll call this one of them. But yeah, the Star does this to prove that he's the real deal. Giving animals speech is really powerful magic, which is why it's relegated as like a symbol of you completing your training in this rewrite. And Star just did it. But Asha is too busy freaking out to make any of those connections, because if her dad finds out her familiar can talk without her completing her training, she's dead. Star apologizes and says he can reverse it, but Valentino refuses. He likes this, and Asha doesn't need to complete any dumb training to prove she's talented. It's the principle of the thing, she says, but the Star just shrugs. Also, since we're nearing the end of this scene, and I know what you guys are thinking about where this falls in line roughly in the movie, let me just quickly shove in here that we're not dropping I'm a Star. I know, the song is bad. I know it has first draft level screw-ups in the word choice. I know about Watch Out World, Here I Are. I didn't watch this movie like 7 times just to forget about that blunder. But like I said, I don't mind the songs in this movie. The instrumentation is pretty nice in all of them. They just need a little more time to bake in the lyrics department, as well as a few more elements to make them less vague and actually serve their purpose as musical theater songs. It would be unfair for me to completely write out I'm a Star while giving crappy songs like This Is the Thanks I Get a chance. And you might ask, what would you do to fix the song then, Geeky? I won't go into as much depth on my thought process because I pretty much rewrote the entire song, and we don't have time for that. But I will say one thing. The big idea I had going into this one was, alright. What if we just made Friend Like Me? But if the genie were cringe fail. The scene naturally culminates in Asha realizing there's no way she's gonna get rid of the Star. He reaffirms that he's not going back into the sky until he grants her wish and sees it through. She obliges, but says it'll be hard. Her dad keeps all the wishes locked up in his study, and there's no way he'll let her anywhere near them anytime soon.
We should just sneak in then! Take the wish you need and sneak back out. He'll never know, based on what you're saying. He's got tons of wishes anyways. What's one missing wish, eh?
But if we do that, isn't that stealing? Right. They don't belong to him either, do they? At the very least, we'll need a plan first, mister. Actually, what is your name? I don't want to keep calling you Star or whatever.
Oh, yeah, I don't have one.
You don't have a name?
I think I had one at some point. Something about, I don't know, ears? But I forgot a long time ago. Not that I needed one. I mean, no one else in the sky would call me it anyways.
No one? What about your parents? Your mother? Guardian? Third brother's cousin's wife, fifth niece, great aunt?
Nope, never met them.
Gosh, well, you need a name. What about... Chance?
Chance?
I wished for a chance to have everyone's wish come true. I think it fits.
The cutesy scene with Asha meeting the Star Boy cuts back to the castle. Magnifico is going through his books to try and find something he can use. While he's doing so, Amaya enters and tells him some bad news. The guards search the entire castle grounds and Asha isn't anywhere. She must have snuck out during the wish ceremony.
It must have been Asha then. Who else in Rosas knows magic like that?
Are you serious? Asha is talented, but she's a child. She's not talented enough to pluck a star from the sky. Think rationally, Mireille.
Do not tell me to think rationally. Sorry, Mirena. I'm sorry, I just... Everything I do is to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Perhaps they might know how this happened. We may not know who pulled the star down, but we can try and find out who we might have missed. This is a real location in the final movie that makes barely any sense. I found out recently in the art book that originally Magnifico was going to have an altar in his wish room that he would do all his forbidden magic on, just out in the open in his wish room. You can even see it in the old animatics, and even in more recent storyboards present in the Art of Wish book. The art book also has a passage from David Womersley, the environmental art director, about how the altar was removed really late into production, so they probably didn't have a lot of time to flesh out the reasoning behind Magnifico's secret forbidden magic basement. Further adding to my theory that most of the story got overhauled late into production without pushing the release back, and that's why this movie turned out the way it did. I think the movie tries to hand-wave it like, what a sorcerer needs is not your concern. But still, they don't really explain why he has a second, much more evil-looking study. So I decided to give him a reason for having a second, much more evil-looking study, because the one thing brightening up the otherwise foreboding dungeon space are a bunch of mirrors hanging from the ceiling and walls, emitting a soft orange light. And we soon discover that these aren't just average mirrors. These are stars. All of the stars that once dotted the sky above the Mediterranean. Magnifico is keeping them in his study, sealed inside of mirrors. For what reason? We find out pretty soon.
Take it from someone like me when your hopes are in despair. If your desires are...
Greetings, stars! I hope you're all having a fun time down there. I'm not. It seems that the princess, my daughter, has done something supremely foolish. In the process, I've discovered that I missed one of you.
How unfortunate. I suppose you're not as powerful as you thought.
Says the one stuck in a mirror. You wouldn't happen to know something about this, would you, Hope?
How could I? I'm just a silly little star you pulled down from the sky. Obviously, I couldn't be any smarter than you, Magnifico. Could I?
Fine, then. Don't tell me. It'll make it all the sweeter when I find that rogue star and lock him away with the rest of you.
You know, catching all of us won't fix it, right?
Excuse me?
I already tried to make it right. As right as I could. I granted your wish. For hope, for safety. And what did you do? You and your loyal wife use your new home as a step ladder to the sky, to tear us all out of it like books off the top shelf of the cosmos. And now you keep us locked up like criminals.
Because that's what you all are. I'm not letting you hang in the sky and be careless any longer. And that goes for whoever I missed. Goodness, Rich, you're not looking too good. Here. Sonia Osman had her wish ceremony yesterday. You know what to do.
So this is where we get some important bits of information. Magnifico not only keeps the stars to keep them from being wished upon, but also uses them to grant whatever wishes he deems worthy. Magnifico can't even grant wishes. The stars do it for him, and he takes the credit to boost his image to the people of Rosas. Magnifico can only keep the wishes safe in his study. He still needs the stars alive to grant them. And we also figure out that one of the stars, one simply called Hope, may know more than she's letting on. We got to the next morning in Rosas, where I'd like to insert my personal favorite trope into this rewrite. The non-human character keeps almost blowing their cover, not because their disguise sucks, but because they don't know human social cues. You know, something like Human Rayla from Dragon Prince.
I sure do like hanging out with other humans and talking about things like money and starting wars.
Plus, it's at least a little less suspicious than, I'm sorry, girl everyone in town knows walks super slowly and suspiciously with a twitching bag. I think I get the logic here. It's a medieval kingdom with forests full of wildlife ready for the hunting, but if you're trying to pass off the star in a bag as like a rabbit or something you just caught, don't side-eye everyone and walk really slowly like you're doing espionage in CSGO. Honestly, that was another issue people had with Asha acting quirky. She acts hella suspicious in scenarios where she really doesn't have to. Then again, I used to act like that in the most mundane scenarios when I was her age, but we're done talking about quirky girl Asha and her being a teen girl. Back to sneaking Starboy into Rosas. Asha sneaks Chance into the city by just throwing a little hood over his head to cover his hair and ears. You might ask, hey, what about his obviously glowing freckles and cape? Won't that give him away? And I hear you. There's an animatic from the old draft of Wish where Star can turn off his ethereal glow to blend in, and I'd like to present my twist on that idea.
Hey Chance, can you turn off your glow?
Yeah, sure.
Oh no!
So that gives Asha two problems to deal with. One, they gotta be careful passing through shaded areas because Chance has accidentally turned himself into a lighthouse with how brightly his hood shines in the dark, and that's difficult because due to the location of Rosas being on the Strait of Gibraltar, which I'm not just picking a place in the Mediterranean, they confirm that that's where it's set, they just don't specify it in the movie, it's likely to adopt a form of roofed market streets, either to combat the heat or as cultural adoption from trading with North African nations and the Levant, making them shaded and cool. Though this is not to say they are without lighting, but even with lanterns and skylights, he'd still stick out like a sore thumb. These marketplace design facts are brought to you by my Discord friend Rusty, who knew enough about the specific architectural styles that Wish pulls from to realize something was off, ended up delving more into Iberian and Muslim architecture, and realized that he had a lot of things to say about how Wish utilized it. The other problem is Chance nearly blows their cover because he keeps wanting to help people. Via magic. In a kingdom where no one's allowed to use magic aside from the royal family. At the very least, Asha figures out his tell for when he's about to use magic. He keeps saying these funny words right before he does any kind of magic.
Figidus.
Whoa! No, stop that! You can't do that here! Why do you always talk like an idiot before you cast spells?
It helps me concentrate. Kinda like how you use that stick to cast your magic.
It's not a stick, it's a pencil. You can't cast magic here. It's against the law for people other than the royal family to use magic in Rosas.
Huh, well, why is that?
Because magic is dangerous in the wrong hands. You can only trust a good and just leader with that sort of talent.
Well, that seems rather silly. I mean, it's not like I'm using it for anything bad. I'm just helping people.
Well, just help people without magic. Can you manage that? Mm-hmm. Good, then just do that.
I like for this scene to play out similarly to the ones from Tangled and The Little Mermaid. Both movies have wonderful scenes of people experiencing a lively kingdom for the first time ever, taking in all the wonderful sights and sounds. For Tangled, it's when Eugene brings Rapunzel to Corona for the first time, and in The Little Mermaid, it's Eric taking Ariel on a tour to see all the wonders of his kingdom. And for this film, it's Chance looking at all the sights and sounds Rosas has to offer, and being enamored by all of it. The need to lay low be damned. There's 2 points to the scene. One is to show how kind Chance is. He's a little stupid, sure, but he's looking out for other people. And the people of Rosas, even though they've only just met him, like him as well. I mean, you can't help but like this strange newcomer with a penchant for helping others. The other point is to show Asha and Chance just being happy. Chance has finally met people and feels like he can interact and make connections without fear for his life. Asha finds some time in the middle of all this to unwind a bit and feel less stressed. It's a brief glimpse into what could be if this all goes well. But eventually the fun times must always end, and Asha and Chance need to sneak into the palace. Asha's plan is to take him straight to the study, but they have to be careful before it's too late. A palace guard spots and recognizes Asha, and the whole place gets alerted about the princess's safe return, and all is merry. Asha, however, is very nervous when her parents arrive out of seemingly thin air. Chance is oblivious. He just sees cool people with cool magic and is quick to try and make friends and introduce himself. Up until Asha introduces him to her father, and the color leaves his face. He still tries to be polite while Asha covers their butts, though.
This is Chance. He's just arrived in Roses this morning, so I was giving him a tour. We should really get back to that, actually, Mom, Dad, if we could just...
Fresh off the boat, huh? How fun. So, where do you hail from, Chance?
Spain!
Oh, yep, good old Spain. You know, weather's much nicer here, much cooler.
Interesting. Roses is usually warmer than Spain this time of year.
Well, he's from the seaside, so it's a lot hotter than Roses over there right now.
Yep, seaside.
Asha realizes this is going down like a lead balloon and quickly says that she's still got a tour to give, so she'll get out of Magnifico and Amaya's hair. They've got royal duties and stuff to attend to, after all. Specifically, we find out Magnifico is going to let people know that the magic lights from the night before weren't him, and that any information about a rogue magic user in the kingdom should be turned over to him. Asha loudly declares that she'll show off the kitchen next, but Magnifico and Amaya aren't stupid. They know something is up. However, Magnifico doesn't want to make a scene in the palace where the guards can see. Instead, he decides to have Amaya's familiar keep an eye on her. If anything suspicious happens, Charo can report back to Magnifico and Amaya ASAP. The scene that would go around this point in the original movie would be the one where Asha goes to ask Dahlia about how to get into the king's study without getting caught. It's a fine enough scene of Asha confiding in her friend about the big thing she's gotten herself roped up in, but it also wouldn't work in this rewrite. You know, what with Asha being the princess, aka someone who would probably already know that her father's study has a dumbwaiter that comes straight from the palace kitchen. So instead, this scene will serve a slightly different purpose. Asha still comes into the kitchen with Chance playing up the cover story of her giving him a tour, but instead of telling Dahlia what's going on, she tries to go straight to finding the dumbwaiter. Although we do get a brief conversation where Dahlia tells her that she's sorry about the outcome of her recent magic lesson, but Asha assures her that it's fine. She'll try again next time. Asha tries to drop the topic by asking Dahlia about her, food endeavors. Maybe she's finally perfected her cool little Magnifico cookies, who knows. This small aside from Dahlia is the perfect distraction for Asha, as it allows Chance the opportunity to notice Simon. This is like the one thing I decided to yoink from someone else's animatics, so complete props to Sarah's work for making the point that one thing that could have definitely used emphasis in Wish was Simon's depression. In the movie, they make an effort to show off just how badly Simon is doing after he's recently given his wish to the king. Not very well, considering the whole twist with him turning traitor on Asha and her friends hinges on you remembering this, and multiple people I know who saw this movie went, "Wait, who is he again?" I feel like either Simon should have been way more prevalent in the movie and given more screen time, or they should have had some other people visible in the film who've also given up their wish and suffered the same fate as him. How I'd have it is that Simon in this scene, and other scenes in the movie of course, much like others, is visibly a tired, hollow shell of himself. To put it bluntly, he's depressed. How else is someone supposed to act when a fundamental part of themselves is just gone? And Chance? He notices this.
Hello?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
This, of course, raises questions, as any instance of a stranger touching you and apologizing for seemingly nothing will, and Asha is forced to come clean.
Right, so... my last lesson. I saw the wishes of Roses, and I... kind of sort of maybe challenged my dad.
You stood up to your dad? To the king? I'm proud of you, but also very concerned about where this is going.
Dahlia, what if you found out the wishes of the people you care about have no chance of coming true?
What do you mean?
I mean your wish, Dahlia. And yours too, Simon. I saw both of your wishes. And they were beautiful, and I wish you could see it. But my dad thinks they're too vague to grant. Well, at least yours is, Dahlia.
Well, why didn't he say anything then? I could have at least wished for something more specific then, at least.
See, that's what I said. Kinda. I just asked, well, can't you give it back? But he said no. So I got really upset and ran away last night, and I went to the edge of Roses and...
Get on with it, please.
I made a wish. On a star.
They have those here?
And the star, well, answered. Guys, this is Chance. And he refuses to leave until he helps me return all the wishes to everyone in Rosas. Well, we're starting with your guys' first, but once we come up with a solid plan, we'll come back for—
Whoa, a real wishing star. Do you have wings?
What?
Are those sparkles natural or magical?
I think they're both.
Is it true that you guys are actually fireflies?
What? No. I mean, I don't think so.
Hey, will you lay off the kid? He's had a wild day.
Your baby goat is talking.
Yeah, he does that now. Thank the star for that.
And yeah, the rest of this plays out much like the movie. Asha asks Dahlia and Simon to buy her some time by distracting Magnifico during his big briefing, while she, Chance, and Valentino go to sneak into the study. With one added little thing to prove to you how stupid of a decision it was to scrap the Starboy idea.
Chance, we're not gonna fit.
Leave me behind, Asha. I'll guard the dumbwaiter down here in case there's trouble.
Oh, no, there's no need for that. Here.
You could turn into something small and easy to conceal this entire time. I don't like feeling small all the time, and I've only got these little baby hands with no fingers. I can't do anything with them.
Oh, finally, someone who gets it.
Do you see? You could have had both, Disney. He's literally magic and a shape-shifting Starboy, but you just— oh, well, the Starboy idea wasn't working. Why wasn't it working? Because of the genie similarities? Then why are any of Asha's friends here? Why couldn't a genie like Star stay in the film? Is it because you wanted your marketable plushie? I know too well how this industry works. I saw what happened with Sisu, but you could have had both here. You could— I'm fine. I'm normal. Let's move it along. Again, we get a scene I felt was fine in the movie. Magnifico has a meeting with the people of Rosas to let them know what's going on, and to tell him anything that might help them apprehend the culprit. Dahlia tries to stall him, but in doing so causes a few more problems. The slight change I'd make is that Amaya tries to be the one to lead the meeting first. She's the one that most often faces the public in this rewrite, and is good at twisting words and turning situations in the favor of the royal family. But Magnifico, in a show of hubris, says that he'll handle this. It's not like Amaya can follow through on leading the town meeting anyways. Charo intercepts her right as Magnifico goes out to face the people, after all. One thing I learned when it comes to writing is that it's a cop-out to use a coincidence to get your heroes out of trouble, but really fun narratively to use coincidences to get them into trouble. The coincidence here? Dahlia asking questions leading to the people of Rosas asking questions about the wishes in particular. Are they safe? Why aren't they allowed to see them? What if they want to change their wish? All valid questions that the king isn't ready to answer because he doesn't like that they call into question his authority. He ends the meeting there and heads back to the palace. He's intercepted by Amaya and Charo, though. Mire?
Not now, love. I'm busy.
Your Majesty, I have vital information about the rogue magician who made that light. It was Asha.
I knew that young man wasn't Spanish.
We both grew up there, and now you see that?
And you did?
Well, of course I did, but we couldn't do anything with servants and guards watching.
Right.
And I heard them, Your Majesties. She's bringing the Starboy to the study to steal all your wishes.
Oh, that little.
I knew she was childish, but this is something else.
I need to breathe. I need to focus. What do? A potion? We could poison him with something inconspicuous. Perhaps an apple.
Let's try a spell. We could turn him into a harmless little creature, and then we could smash him with a hammer!
No, that would never work. Perhaps a summon, make a deal with some otherworldly friends.
Or a curse. That could weaken him just as well. And perhaps even send him into a sleeping death right where he stands.
Oh, you're so devilish, Mirena.
Oh, stop. I could never be more devilish than you, Mire.
The Starboy. What shall we do?
Charo, Amaya, don't you worry your pretty little heads. I'll go attend to our daughter and her new friend.
Then we cut to the study. Asha, Star, and Valentino have made it to the top of the dumbwaiter and go to get out. The door is locked, though. Asha feels like such an idiot for not remembering that her father does this and tries to brute force it open. And then Valentino tries something.
Don't worry, I'll ram it! Ow! Oh, it hurts without proper horns.
Chance realizes he can get his little baby star hands through the crack at the bottom of the door, but he can't reach the latch and instead tries to magic it open. And like in the movie, this leads to disaster. Asha's able to clean it up, but not before some documents that she hopes her father didn't need end up in the crossfire. Then we get to the wishes. Asha tries to open the door, and just like earlier with her dad, she can't get it open. She tries and tries and tries, but it does not work. Chance has to open it up himself, and this is where he sees the wishes for the first time. And he feels something he's never felt. This energy, this raw magic. This is a star who's never granted a wish before, and now he's surrounded by so many of them. While Chance is busy gawking, Asha realizes they'll need something discreet to carry the wishes in. So she tells Valentino to head down to her bedroom and grab her bag for her. It's the same bag from earlier that she put her books away in. It's a double reference, being both an endless travel bag like Mary Poppins, but also being the same kind of bag that Merlin had in Sword in the Stone. Don't ask me why Asha, a princess from the 1250s, has a bag that, as far as I can tell, wasn't designed that way until the Victorian era. This is the one time I'm taking away the time period constraints. If Merlin was allowed to know what Bermuda and movies were in the Middle Ages, and if the people working on Wish were allowed to step out of the time period to create all the pastries in the kitchen, Asha can have her bulky doctor bag. While Valentino goes to grab the bag, Asha says they'll need to be quick and find Dahlia and Simon's wishes. Chance figures that may take a bit because, good lord, have you seen how many wishes there are in here? We as the audience know this is going to take a while, but we as the audience also know that they don't have a while because Magnifico is coming up to the study and he is pissed. Valentino sees this. He sees him going up the stairs from outside of Asha's room and tries to get to the study before he does, but he gets held up by Charo. Gotta have the good and evil animal sidekick get into a scuffle, right? Chance manages to find Dahlia's wish and is about to go back and find Simon's when Magnifico shows up, catching them in the act when he abruptly opens up the big mirror door. A confrontation ensues.
Little Starlight! I knew you were upset, but to do this behind my back? And your new friend? Spain, huh?
Yep, that's where I'm from.
I figured as much. So you're the little troublemaking star that I missed.
Missed?
As in missed, last night, when you pulled him down from the sky, Asha, one kind of magic I told you not to mess with, and yet you did. Deliberately.
It was an accident!
Oh, I'm sure it was, little Starlight.
Now, I've heard this time and time again from people complaining about Wish, that the villain song is mid at best and insultingly bad at worst, that it doesn't sound evil enough, that it sounds more like a jaded hero than a classic Disney villain, but here's my hot take of the century, get ready for this. I think the song could still work. Now listen, stop that. Obviously, the song has its problems. Like I said, I'm not qualified to comment on specific song-related stuff, so at best I'll just be parroting opinions of people who actually know what they're talking about. Like how it's too upbeat, and if you want to start upbeat, you need a proper build-up toward when it starts getting more sinister. Also how it overuses modern vernacular, and it makes you take the whole thing less seriously. And that's not even getting into like the technical song stuff with it. But all that aside, I think that with how this rewrite is, Magnifico's song as it is could work. With lyrical changes, of course, to better fit the context, but it could work nonetheless because, hear me out, he's not singing about the people of Rosas. That's just something to fuel the fire in this scene. He's singing this about his daughter, to his daughter, about how disrespectful she is. He puts a roof over her head, gives her a place to live, fed her, clothed her, taught her everything he knows, and she repays him by questioning his methods when she's just a dumb teenager who doesn't know anything because she's been alive for way less than him, and trying to steal from him. The song could be recontextualized to be about a toxic father berating his kid for daring to question him when he raised her, doing the bare minimum as a decent parent, and she still defies him. In this context, this one line, "I let you live here for free and I don't even charge you rent," would actually work. Because, God, if I had a nickel for every story I've seen of toxic parents charging their kids rent the moment they get a job or they're deemed old enough to act like an adult. And honestly, even with the upbeatness of it, I think the instrumental of the song is, fine. I wondered why exactly I didn't have a problem with it while everyone else did, and then I realized it's because there's another Disney villain song with a similar element to it. Like, seriously, if you just listen to the instrumental of Mother Knows Best with none of the movie's context, you never guess it's a villain song. Aside from a couple moments where a minor chord or other such sinister motif plays, it sounds at home in a whistle while you work type Disney scene. So, why is the upbeat song alright in Mother Gothel's case but not in Magnifico's? Obviously, there's the context of both scenes to think about. Mother Gothel's song is upbeat because she's playing the role of a mother feigning concern for her daughter out in that scary world, trying to manipulate Rapunzel into staying in the tower in the best way a mother figure can. But in the context of this rewrite of Wish, Magnifico could be singing his song and manipulating Asha into admitting she's in the wrong by bringing up all the stuff that he's done for her as a parent. The songs would both serve a similar purpose in this context. Magnifico's would just be angrier. God, could you imagine, like, a Magnifico villain song, but it's in the style of, like, Ruthlessness from Epic the Musical? And after all I've done for you, this is a thanks I get. Then I remembered something very important about Mother Knows Best, and why it's still able to work as a villain song despite how upbeat it sounds. Because it gets a much more sinister reprise later in the movie, once Rapunzel finally stands up for herself and Mother Gothel dials up the manipulation to 11. And since I'm taking notes from Mother Gothel anyways in terms of Asha having a toxic relationship with her dad, here's how I'd handle it. This Is the Thanks I Get is still upbeat, but we changed the lyrics to 1. Fit the context of it being a father talking to his daughter, and 2. Not be awful. That sounds vague, but I mean that in the sense of, you know, not having him overuse modern vernacular, not make the lyrics redundant in this regard, and having the emphasis being on the right syllables. Then maybe rewrite the chorus to not have the annoying little, like, you know, in the background, because good God, maybe I'd replace it with that snare drum marching beat that Jonah Hu did in his rewrite, which is the only thing I'm pulling from it. His rewrite of the song is great, but I don't want to copy anyone here, and his rewrite is for the original context of the song, and it wouldn't work here anyways. Back on track, though. We'd have This Is the Thanks I Get play as it does here, and then later down the line, once we get to the climactic final fight with Magnifico on top of the palace, he gets a much more sinister reprise of the song. I'll go into that when we actually get to the climax, because boy howdy, do I have something fun for that, guys. The point of the song in this context is that he kept Asha safe her whole life. And this is the thanks he gets? What actually happens during this song is the fun part. I'm pulling some ideas from Encanto here. During the first bit, the number is non-diegetic imagery, or partly non-diegetic imagery, and partly Asha and Chance playing keep away with Dahlia's wish as Magnifico chases them down. I don't know how to explain it beyond that, I just think that combination of things with this song and this context would be neat. Chance and Asha accidentally find their way into Magnifico's secret dungeon below the study. Most likely one of them accidentally opened the secret entrance and they run down to try and find a way out, you know, to escape the crazy sorcerer man trying to kill them. However they end up there, this is where they come to a horrible discovery. That, of course, being the other stars being kept prisoner in the palace. All of them stars that once hung above the Mediterranean Sea. This would probably all happen during the bridge, you know, the bit of This Is the Thanks I Get that was originally sung while Magnifico was flipping through the Forbidden Magic book, but there's no Forbidden Magic book in this draft, I'm getting rid of it. It was a dumb cop-out to try and give an excuse for Magnifico to go full evil without the characters having to feel bad about taking him out. It was cheap and lazy and just... Where was I? Oh yeah. Instead, the bridge is about the stars. Asha's found them. Cat's out of the bag. Magnifico comes clean. If only because he now fully intends to trap Chance among them and keep Asha grounded until she learns to behave and act like a proper princess of Rosas, which is Magnifico talk for, I'm going to isolate you here and break you down until you stop being rebellious and conform to the way your mother and I run this kingdom. And just when they think they're cornered, Valentino's here! Yay! He's able to knock something over and give them an opening to escape, and they flee back up the stairs toward the study. And hey, now they have a bag to stuff the wish in and can actually make a safe getaway with it. Hooray! But by now it seems like there's no way out of the study. The dumbwaiter is compromised for whatever reason. I can't think of one right now. I'm sure whatever other writers on this movie probably could. So they can't use the dumbwaiter. That's the important thing here. And the door, the main door, is also blocked by mirrors and crystals or whatever else Magnifico might have been using during the magic fight to grab the wish. And as the song crescendos near the end, our heroes realize they only have one option. And so the song ends with Chance, well, taking a chance.
This is the things I
So Asha and Chance are able to escape out the window. The only problem is, everyone else saw their escape as well. And with Asha and Chance missing, that gives Magnifico and Amaya the perfect opportunity to twist the truth in their favor. We cut to later, after Chance, Asha, and Valentino have gotten their bearings again and continued on with their quest. By nightfall, they've arrived at Dahlia and Simon's house, which I realize how weird it is for people who work in the palace kitchen to not live in the palace. I'm thinking maybe since Simon and Dahlia have 5 younger siblings, they can't all live in the palace, right? I mean, he's probably got other servants that already took up all the other living quarters. So if they got a home in the forested part of Rosas where the younger siblings all live and maybe a neighbor watches them or one of the kids is old enough to be in charge while they're away. I don't know, it's the medieval period. I don't know if they really worried about babysitters. And then, I don't know, maybe they take turns going back home to take care of them at night. Like divorced parents with a custody agreement, if you will. Chance has been given a blanket because he looks cold, and he's spending his time interacting with Dahlia and Simon's 5 little brothers and sisters. It's wholesome and cute. Chance is doing little magic tricks for them. I don't know, just something fun like that. While this is happening, Asha gives Dahlia her wish back, and Dahlia is able to finally remember it, and she's finally able to realize just what she gave away to Magnifico, and that she should have never done it. This wish belongs to her. Simon, however, feels down after it's revealed that they couldn't get his wish before they had to run.
Well, don't worry, Simon. We're going back for your wish too. Just you wait.
Wait, hold on.
What? We have to go back for his, Asha. Look at him.
I know, but we don't need to go back this soon. We need a plan first.
Right, but we are going back. Right?
Asha doesn't know how to respond to this, so instead she asks if she can go get some fresh air. Alone. This is a ploy to go off on her own and have a good think, but while Dahlia and Simon are keen to let her have some time alone, all Chance sees is a problem that Asha isn't telling them about.
Don't worry about her, Chance. I've been following Asha since I was a week old. Although I'm only 3 weeks old, sometimes she just needs some time to herself. No biggie.
That's not what this feels like, though. It's like she had something bottled up. Like she had a lid on to try not to let it overflow.
Fine, I'll go with you, but only so I can give Asha moral support if you make her more sad.
When Chance finds Asha, she's skipping rocks across a calm ocean. She seems frustrated, although not energetically frustrated like you might see at a Disney flick. She seems just tired, defeated. Like something so out of nowhere happened and her spirit's just been crushed.
Are you alright, Asha?
Yeah. Well, no, but... It's just, there's so much. We've got to go back home to get Simon's wish, but also my dad hates me. And we need to find a way to get the other wishes after all that, but the one guy who's guarding them is the same guy who hates my guts right now, who also happens to be my dad.
You said the dad thing twice now.
Because it's all I can think about! My own dad wants me dead.
Well, then we should fight him. If you hate him, then that should be no problem.
I can't.
Well, why can't you?
Because I still love him.
You love him? He's gone crazy, Asha. Dad or not, you shouldn't still love him.
Well, I do. He's still my father. He raised me, fed me, kept a roof over my head, taught me everything he knows. When only he and my mother are allowed to know magic, he still taught me.
So what? Anyone could do that. That doesn't mean you should let him push you around.
You wouldn't get a chance. You don't have... Oh gosh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean... I don't know where to go from here, Chance. Dahlia and Simon's wishes are just 2 out of thousands. I don't know how I could ever bring up the courage to... Did you do something with your hair? Your hair. It's not white anymore. It's yellow now.
He did all sorts of other magic. Maybe he finally used it to make his hair a less obvious color? There's a lot of blonde people in Rosas.
But he's still glowing, Valentino.
I'm dying.
What? What do you mean you're dying?
I don't know. I can feel it. Like I've got less magic than before.
He's like a lamp running out of oil.
Well, I think if I stay down here much longer... Poof!
No, you're not dying down here. You're going back up in the sky.
What? Hey, whoa, hey!
Careful, Asha! He's a star. They get denser with age. He's probably heavy.
I don't care. He needs to leave.
I'm not leaving until I grant your wish! I have a duty to fulfill, and I'm not leaving until I do! Whoa!
The wish doesn't matter! You should go back into the sky so you can live! Not get hung up on what I want!
It's a bit late for that.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Ugh, what are you even talking about?
Listen, I can't leave you here, Asha. Your so-called dad wants to lock you up for probably forever. Everyone else's wishes are in danger, and I don't know how to describe it.
Describe what?
This weird feeling in my stomach. It's all fluttery when I'm with you. But it's a nice feeling.
And this is where I'd put At All Costs. Because despite me avoiding watching everyone else's Wish rewrite videos, this is the one thing I couldn't avoid. Everyone made this connection the moment the demo for At All Costs was released. For those unaware, there is only one difference in the lyrics of the demo versus the version used in the final film. In the final film, there's a line that goes, "Promise as one does," but in the demo, it's "Love you as one does." I have a whole video on my channel where I went into depth about this song and the whole Asha Star thing in particular. Too Long Didn't Watch, Julia Michaels wrote the I Want song for the movie before the script was finalized and wasn't allowed to rewrite it, and with the way she talks about the songwriting process in interviews, it's entirely possible this happened with other songs she wrote for the film. Along with that, the deleted scenes of the movie's old draft disprove the idea of Asha and Magnifico ever finding themselves in a place where it makes sense for them to sing the song in its current context. I'll admit, in the original video I went more the angle of, here's why it's not originally about Asha and Magnifico, instead of bringing up evidence as to why I think it could have been originally about Star and Asha, and for that I've got a couple of things to back me up here. Firstly is the fact that it makes more sense lyrically if you listen to it through the lens of it being about a star who has never been human, who's never experienced love before, trying to come to terms with these feelings and describe them as best he can. You could chalk that up to, like, fandom girlies trying to stretch the meaning, except there's literal concept art from the movie showing off this idea of Star changing over the course of the story because he's becoming more human and learning what it's like to feel. It's not just circulating online either, it's in the art book and in the Making of Wish documentary that I didn't know was a thing when I made the original Starboy Asha deep dive, so... oops. The other thing about the song is how, out of all of the songs in this movie, At All Costs is the only one to have any difference in lyrics between its demo and the final. Of course, not all the song demos are available to the public as far as I could find. This is the thanks I get, Welcome to Rosas, and the reprise of This Wish being the only ones to not have a demo released to YouTube. But out of all of the demos we have on hand, there's minor differences, if any, and these differences are easily attributed to the instrumentals having more obvious cues for the sake of the vocalist knowing when to come in and where to stop. That's just the nature of a demo song. So why is At All Costs the only one that has different lyrics in terms of Love You As One Does, as well as Asha's little wow in between verses? Because, perhaps, those lines didn't fit the context it was originally written for anymore. Another reason I believe this song was originally written for these two is because of another song that was tweaked without much thought to the outcome. A Wish Worth Making was originally going to be sung by Asha's Saba around the point where he gets his wish back, but it was cut from the film. They don't give a reason why in the Making of Wish documentary aside from, sometimes the movie tells you what it needs, which, okay. I'm assuming they cut it because it was a slower song and they thought kids would get bored. It's something that happens a lot in Disney films. When She Loved Me and Toy Story 2 almost got cut for this reason, and If I Never Knew You in Pocahontas was actually cut from the original theatrical release. Heck, Part of Your World was almost cut for this reason. Howard Ashman had to fight to keep that song in the movie. But do you know what wasn't cut from Wish? The pop cover of A Wish Worth Making that Julia Michaels made for the end credits. I will say, the way they talk about making it the end credits song in the Making of Wish documentary makes it seem like they cut it earlier on in development and then realized, oh hey, but we can still use it, let's record a new version for the end credits, which I could believe that. Almost fully finished animation with the final character designs and set designs aside, I could believe that. If the motif from this song wasn't everywhere in the film's score.
It's his birthday today.
You see why it's such a weird song to cut. Also, I'm bringing this up briefly because I forgot to mention it in my Asha X Star video essay, and everyone brought it up. But yes, I do know about the one draft of Star where he was meant to be a manifestation of Asha's grandfather in a version of the story where he'd passed away. The reason I didn't include it is because there is so little of this draft. They mention that it's a very recent phase of Star's rewrites in the art book, but if it is such a recent change, why are there no animatics or deleted scenes showing it? You have deleted scenes of Shapeshifter Star, which according to your list of phases came before Grandpa Star, yet you have no deleted scenes showing off Grandpa Star. And I know they also mentioned that Grandpa Star was also a shapeshifter, so this could be him, but need I bring up this scene right here that looks way too romantic to be platonic, and it would be really weird if that was her grandpa? They don't even mention it in the Making of Wish documentary. They talk about the original Starboy idea and the shapeshifter and how they got to the final design, but they never mention, oh yeah, at one point he was Asha Saba. There's also the fact that Sabino is so important to the story of Wish, even in the old deleted scenes, as in him being alive and present as her grandpa is so important to the story. I think this phase didn't last for long at all, so I don't think it really applies in the whole were they in love conversation anyways. But yeah, even if it weren't originally about Star and Asha, and the song really was always about Asha and Magnifico, I'd still shuffle it around to go here and be sung by Asha and Chance regardless. Because as I mentioned before, reframing this to be about a Star trying to articulate his newfound emotions fits. I would not change a dang thing about this song's lyrics because it fits that perfectly with this context. You have a verse where the male part of the duet, the Starboy in this case, is singing about this strange feeling he has and how he's trying to make sense of it. It's like Asha's, tangible happiness to him. He's always happy when he's around her, and the feeling she gives him is something he's truly never felt before. He's never felt love before. He's never been in love before. But whatever this is, he knows that it makes him want to keep Asha safe, no matter what. He can't leave and go back to the sky now, because he loves Asha too much to leave her alone when her abusive father is trying to find her. He wants to protect her at all costs, even the cost of his own life.
At all costs.
Do you trust me?
Yes. And then the second verse is Asha reciprocating. Making her wish and bringing Chance down from the sky has changed her life for the better. She feels safe with him. She feels like she can be open and be herself for the first time in a long while. Because back at home, whenever she'd be open with her mother and father, they'd either dismiss her feelings or just subtly put her down. Chance doesn't do that. He doesn't make her feel like using art to cast spells is childish, or that she's an idiot for thinking everyone in Rosas deserves a chance to make their wish come true. She feels safe to think and feel around him. Thanks to him, she'll never dream like she used to do. And she acknowledges that maybe, just maybe, she's ready to face her father for him. And she hopes that she can fight for him, to keep people from trying to hurt him, in hopes that it'll be alright in the end to stay with him instead of giving in to Magnifico and Amaya. The bridge is where they both vow to each other. They'll love each other, as one does, and protect each other at all costs. Come what may, even if things don't turn out how they might have hoped they would, at the very least, they did it to protect someone they love. To keep someone they love safe, at all costs. There was a video I saw once of a bunch of guys trying to make a gingerbread house from scratch, but they forgot to put flour in it, so it came out of the oven as just a pan of slop that they could barely mush together into a standing structure. That's what At All Costs feels like in the final movie. They took out the one thing that ties this song together, a beautiful little love story between a girl scared to go up against the king and a star boy willing to keep her safe and help her achieve her wish, and decided the molten batter they had left over would fit just fine as long as no one knew. But we found out, Disney. And I hope these tons of fan animatics of what could have been find the Disney execs before I do. But the scene doesn't end there. Asha and Chance end the number by slow dancing over the water, floating. It's a very cute shot, it's very wholesome. But we get a sense of something being wrong as the shot slowly zooms out into a deep, dark layer, where the image of Asha and Chance dancing is seen on a crystal ball. A crystal ball that Queen Amaya is spying on.
Ah! There they are.
I told you she would be with her two baker friends.
Perhaps you should alert the guards, your majesties?
Perhaps. We could send the guards to fetch her. Call it a search party.
No need. I think it'd be best to let her father have a word with her first.
Promise as one does, I will protect you at all costs.
Thank you so much for watching. Sorry to cut this short, but as you might have guessed, there was way too much for me to fit into one video in a timely manner. I don't have a release date for part 2 yet. I'm knee-deep in making my final senior thesis film, so forgive me if my college graduation gets in the way a bit. I'd like to give a big thanks to my two friends, Vili and Violet, for helping me finish the animatic segments of this video, as well as the amazing cast of voice actors for dubbing those same segments. I have everyone's socials linked in the description, as well as their names and roles they played flashing on screen right now, so please, please, please check them all out. I can't thank them enough for putting up with this behemoth of a project. Also, a big thank you to Micah Teal. They created the backing track that's playing right now, which also played during the Storybook Exposition animatic. Check out their channel, their music is immaculate and adorable and I love it. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe so you get notified whenever part 2 happens, and you know, all that weird YouTube jazz. Alright, bye!